If you ever find yourself driving through the deep and ending pine forests of Oregon after midnight, never trust the headlights in your rearview mirror. In May 2026, a 24-year-old medical student named Ethan rented an isolated wooden cabin for a week of quiet study before his final exams. The cabin was located 12 miles away from the nearest dirt road, completely cut off from cellular service. For the first 2 nights, the only sound was the cold wind howling through the tall pine trees. But on the 3rd night, the silence was broken. At exactly 3:14 a.m., the temperature inside the cabin dropped so low that Ethan could see his own breath. Then, from the pitch-black woods outside, he heard a faint, desperate voice crying for help. It sounded exactly like his mother's voice. Ethan froze, his heart slamming against his ribs. His mother was over 1,000 miles away in Chicago. He stood perfectly still in the center of the dark living room, staring at the heavy wooden front door. The voice came again, closer this time, right from the edge of the porch. It repeated the exact same words, with the exact same frantic tone. "Ethan, please open the door. It's freezing out here." But as Ethan listened closely, a sickening realization crawled down his spine. The voice was perfect, but the spacing between the words was completely unnatural. It didn't breathe between sentences. It was a flawless, dead imitation. Suddenly, something massive and heavy thudded against the outside wall of the cabin, dragging itself along the wood toward the shuttered window. Spurred by pure survival instinct, Ethan backed away into the kitchen, grabbing a long carving knife, his hands shaking violently. The scratching on the outer wall stopped right outside the kitchen window. Through the tiny cracks in the wooden blinds, the moonlight filtered in, casting long, sharp shadows. Slowly, silently, the window glass began to slide upward. A hand reached through the gap, but it wasn't a human hand. The fingers were unnaturally long, with 3 joints each, and the skin was a tight, bruised gray, ending in jagged, split fingernails. Then, a face pressed against the glass. It had no hair, no nose, and its mouth was stretched into a wide and moving, carved smile. But its eyes, massive and blinking and pitch black, were locked directly onto Ethan in the darkness. The creature didn't try to break the glass. Instead, using his mother's exact voice, but in a distorted, dual-tone pitch, it whispered through the crack, "You're such a good boy. Ethan, open up." Panic overrode his senses. Ethan dropped the knife, bolted out the back door into the freezing night, and ran blindly through the jagged pine branches toward his car. He started the engine just as a tall, elongated shadow sprinted out of the tree line on all fours with terrifying speed. Ethan survived, but he left everything behind. Local police searched the cabin the next day. They found no signs of forced entry. However, carved deeply into the inside of the kitchen floorboards, right where Ethan had been standing, were the words, "Almost had you."